to be discussing today, and I'm going to give you some tips, some tangible tools around the number one block stopping you from becoming your best self. And this is stemming on from the conversation that I started yesterday around your system's number one priority being safety and survival. But the number one thing stopping you from being your best self, right? Let's break that down. But before we do, what I want to drop into is the awareness that your best self is a constantly evolving concept, yeah? And for anyone new to this, often we'll talk about your best self as being your higher self, or it's often referred to as your higher self or your next level you. I mean, let me know, what you would call it. But generally we talk about, your best self, your higher self. And this is a concept where you might be where you are right now, and then you without limits, you with all of the things that you want to be experiencing, expressing, and stepping into. Well, that's the version of you that's your best self or your higher self, right? Now, what underpins that awareness is that there is something different. That the you that has that has something potentially different externally, but generally, most certainly, something incredibly different internally. Yeah. And we'll get into that in a second. But the block that is stopping each of us, and when I say you, I say that just because, as an emotive marketing tool, it lets you feel like I'm speaking to you. But the truth is, this runs for me, this runs for the we, this runs for all of us, right? The block that stops us from being our best self is identity coherence. Okay, so this might be new terminology, and I don't want, as a coach of coaches, as someone who helps people become certified, qualified coaches, I am aware that sometimes my language is quite industry specific. And if that is the case here, let me know. Yeah, let me know, because it's helpful for me to know. So I'm going to break down what identity coherence means, because it's a term that essentially means that you believe you are a certain way, which is an identity, and you are going to be in coherence, you're going to be a match for that identity. Now, if we go back a step and we talked about becoming your best self, we talked about being a version of you that's different from the you that you are now, has different things, does different things, lives a different life. That different you is currently not a match for your present identity. Okay. And until you update your identity, you can go and learn all the things, take all the courses. You can kind of keep looking externally, but until you update your identity, you cannot claim that reality. So identity coherence and our commitment to be the us that we think that we are is the biggest block stopping us from having a new, more expanded, maybe more magical experience. So where do we get identity coherence from? Let's break this down. You have spent your whole life, every day, deciding who you are in relation to the world at large, in relation to your family, in relation to, your workplace, in relation to social media. You have made decisions. And in making those decisions, you've created rules, you've created beliefs, you've created contracts even. We won't get into them today. But essentially, when you first got born into the world, remember yesterday we talked about your system is focused as a priority on keeping you safe. And thank goodness, this is not a flaw in the system. I say this until I'm blue in the face. It is not a flaw in your system that it is focused on survival. If it wasn't, where would we be? So because it's focused on survival, it's going to look around and it's going to go, okay, remember yesterday we talked about how do I remain certain, safe, and right about things? How to keep myself alive, primarily, is the most important thing you need to be right about. And how do I stay in belonging with my tribe? So when you come into your family system, you're going to look around, you're going to go, okay, who do I need to be inside of this family unit to stay safe, which could be stay out of the way of trouble, or to get love, to get praise, to get celebration, to feel connected, right? And for some of us, that could be we decided to get really small, really quiet, and almost become invisible, because that was how we stayed safe in potentially a volatile situation. For others, it was achieve things, be amazing, stand out, be bright, talk, speak. And in doing that, we got applause and praise, and we felt safe. So it doesn't matter what you decided. The point is you decided something. You decided something about who you got to be inside of your family. And then beyond that, as you grew up, you went out into society, you joined clubs, maybe you did sport, maybe you went to church, you potentially most likely went to school. And inside of school, you learned how you needed to be safe inside of that construct and that context, yes? So we know that context controls content. So how I show up at school might be different to home. And so we start to, over time, because we're very smart and we're very focused on getting through life with the least amount of pain, right? And the most amount of safety, we're going to go, okay, I got it. I got to be like this here, and I got to be like that there, and I got to be like this. And all we're doing is our unconscious mind is taking note. And it's taking all these notes on who I need to be to stay safe, to stay in belonging, and to quote unquote be successful. And it's measuring these against the rules. And these rules often came from your family. So your family will probably have stories around what success looks like, or ceilings and floors. Anyway, I won't get into all of it because I'm actually unpacking a whole lot of this stuff, which is already in the ebook. If you downloaded the free ebook via the link in bio, you would have read a lot about floors and ceilings. We all have them. And I will do a live on fear of success and fear of failure. But in the masterclass next week, I'll 100% unpack how we download these kind of ceilings and codes and why we definitely will not breach them until we recode them. So you go through life and you basically create a way to stay safe. This becomes your identity. Now, I want to just give you a little morsel of information that when I found it out really blew my mind. So let this land. Identity, the origin, the etymology of the word identity is same. So the Latin origin of the word identity is same. So when you identify as something, you are saying, I'm the same as that. But as you continue to identify yourself, you are continuing to affirm and remain the same. Let's go back to the top of the conversation and really let this land. If I want to have a different experience, if I want to reach a goal, if I want to earn more money, have better sex, be a healthier version of me, my current identity is currently holding me in sameness with what is now. Right? So this is why what you identify as is so critical. And if you are currently really committed to reaffirming, securing, repeating, and solidifying your identity and keeping your identity coherence, you are going to stay where you are. Or you'll very, very, very slowly and in very minor ways create shifts, right? Now, this is because your identity is the foundation of the rest of the world, because the world does change. In fact, the only constant on this planet is change, which is a little bit ironic because we want it to stay the same. We want to stay the same. We want the world to stay the same, and we all struggle with change. And yet it's the only constant. I know, the irony and the cosmic joke of life is just bliss, isn't it? So what we end up constructing through creating these rules, creating these beliefs, creating this identity is we create a cage. The cage of our own conditioning. And to be clear, yes, people bring us these ideas. Yes, people around us are telling us things, but we get to choose, and we choose unconsciously, and we choose out of an act of love and safety. So, it didn't happen to us, we picked it. And the purpose of me pointing that out for anyone out there who has had a rough trot of it, is if you continue to hold the acknowledgement that you are the creator of your codes, you now are the person who has the power to change them. And that's important, because you do, and only you have the power to change them. You chose them for good reason, to stay safe, but you have the power to change them. So if our identity holds us in sameness, how do we create shifts? This is what I want to talk about. So creating the life that you want doesn't mean that the you that you are now can't have it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the you that you are now can't have it. I'm saying the current you is not a match for a future reality that you don't presently have. You are not a match. You will have potentially codes that block it. Let me break down some examples. But before I do, I want to remind you the laws of the universe. We live in a magnetic universe. You will attract what you are, not what you want. Right? You hear this in the manifestation realms. We know this. We know how manifestation works. And the catch for a lot of people is, well, how do I be that version of me until I am that version? I don't get it. I don't know how to close the gap. But the most important thing is to stop limiting, constructing the sameness identity, stop blocking what is naturally your birthright to flow to you. Okay? In your wholeness, you're all things. And when you're all things, you can have anything, right? So the new you, which, is the same you, but without the cage of conditioning, essentially just allows new beliefs to be present, or it allows contradictory beliefs perhaps, or it just allows old beliefs to be shed. And this is perhaps the most important thing, because until you do an audit around what's presently in your system, upgrading is actually challenging. And I get really frustrated when I see thought leaders and teachers and facilitators selling or encouraging people to, come and get the codes, get the download of the codes. And what's missing in that piece, I know it's well-intentioned, but what's missing in that piece is you already have codes. You got plenty of codes. You got survival codes for everything. And until you update your survival codes, it's like water off a duck's back. Yes, we can look to people outside of ourselves, and yes, success leaves crumbs, and yes, we can use role models, but we have to go inwards and see what codes we presently have around money if we're to update our relationship to money. We get to go in and look at our codes around intimacy, connection, love, and then we update them. Looking at someone, or having someone say, I can teach you how to open your heart. Yes, so long as they're teaching you to first address your own codes. Okay, so let's take an example, for instance. Let's say on the money front, that someone wants to step into next level abundance, right? And they're like, okay, I see people around me. I've been earning 100 grand a year, whatever it is. And they're like, I want to earn that next tier. I want to earn $500,000, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. The numbers are irrelevant, right? So this could be relevant. Notice the floors and the ceilings. Some people are like, oh, that seems a lot. What if we want to go from 40 to 80? Same deal. What if we want to go from $1 million to 5 million? Same deal. It's another layer, another level, right? And so if you want to go to a next level of abundance, go inwards and analyze the beliefs you have around money. So first of all, what did you learn from your parents about money? What are your parents earning? Because we have this unconscious desire to stay the same identity with our family, because it is actually a part of our identity. We carry their name. And so what are our parents doing? What did we learn about money from our parents? Some of us will have a lot of shame if we earn more or exceed the success of our parents. Some of us will not. See, because it depends on our internal belief structures there. Some of us might have the belief, imagine you have the belief, I'm terrible with money, money just slips through my fingers, and you're saying these kinds of things, right? Rich people are assholes, rich people are just selfish, and you were raised by a family of people who struggled with money and who were really proud that they were good people who worked hard. All of those beliefs are going to be unconscious blocks in the ascension to the next tier of abundance. Doesn't mean that it's not possible for you. It just means that the you that is currently holding the now moment has certain codes that allow this to be safe and permissible. To go to the next level, those codes need to be able to receive that next level abundance. And so long as they do, so long as there's no blocks, it will flow to you. All right. Now, on a different level, let's take an example of a guy, and he wants to step into super conscious relationship, and he wants to finally open his heart and soften and just experience a love that he's never seen or known before. Let's take a story like that. But then maybe he grew up being really strong and really angry, and he fought a lot. He's got a lot of stories around that. He's got a lot of memories of people saying, oh, you're scary. Your, weakness is softness, and being soft and vulnerable is like not what men do. Lots of stories like that. I know it's ridiculous to us today, but if you grew up hearing that, it's in your system, because brainwashing is washing the brain with your words, right? And so we get to go back and look at what we've been previously washed in through the brain and look at the codes that sit there. Some of them shock you. I've found codes, I'm like, excuse me? That's a belief I have? And then I get to acknowledge that I do have it, and then it kind of makes sense why something's showing up the way it's showing up, right? So if someone believes that I'm tough and I'm angry and I'm here to fight the world, well, they need to do a little bit of upgrading, right, around their present identity. They need to identify as something other than that, because someone other than that is the person who can step into heart-connected, soft love, right? Being the fighter and the warrior only, and this is the key, and this is what we get to do. It's not about changing your identity, it's about expanding your identity. So first step is to do a massive audit around your identity, because your identity is your sameness. It's the level you're at. Whatever you're identifying as right now is keeping you right where you are. Cool. So what are we identifying as? We do an audit. In programs like my Awaken Your Wholeness, this is the first step that we go through. And it's super important in expanding the edges, because if you don't know where your edges are, if you don't know what's presently there, you can't go and kind of extend your border out, right? So finding the edge is really valuable, which means doing a full audit around what are the rules, what are the labels, what are the stories I've been telling myself. It's super cool stuff. And from there, of course, we actually do work around recoding and rewiring it. But today I want to share like straight up tangible tips that you can take and use in the now. So I want to talk about an important skill of ceasing or stopping the watering and reaffirming of old outdated codes and supporting new codes. And we can do that with our language, because our beliefs are the roots, right? They definitely hold us where we are and they grow us to where we want to be. So beliefs are foundational. And yet the stories and the words, the stories that we keep telling, or the stories that we believe are true, and the words that we use, those are the tools that are watering the beliefs. So we can use these and have an awareness for our words and our stories to simply change the narrative, if you will, or eventually over time destabilize the belief. And when you destabilize the belief, it can't hold the power that it previously held. So the first step, the most important step that I want to share around, shifting away from being really stagnant with your identity is to watch your words. And I've got some tips for you around language. So give these a try and let me know how you like them. But the first tip is to use some of these phrases. Let me give you three today, okay? So I want you to add the word yet. It's a super powerful word. And it would be used like this. The first tip is you do add the word yet when you're talking about your capacity. So if it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot do that yet. So notice that when I said I cannot do that, it's a full stop, and it's telling my subconscious, it's telling my entire system, can't do it, not available. By adding yet, we just open the doorway. We swing open the back door and say maybe. And that maybe is a destabilizing opportunity, and that's all we want. So the power of the word yet, don't underestimate it. So and just, it'll sound odd initially when you're doing it, right? Like when I'm training myself through this, my kids through this, and my friends and my clients through this, it's literally like, oh, I could never do that. I mean, not yet, and it's just adding yet. Just adding the word yet. And then another one that I want you to add to the tack on, because so often when we're really getting awareness and addressing these things, it's after the fact that we notice it. If we do deeper work, it's like it never comes up in the first place. But I'm giving you tools to start on, like right where you are, right? So often it's after the fact. It's like you said the thing and you're going to be aware that you said it and you're like, what do I do? Just add the word yet, or add the word except when I'm not, or the phrase I should say, except when I'm not. So how does this one work? I used to use this one a lot. So I'd be like, and notice this is a sentence defining myself with an identity. So if you're someone who says, I'm always late, and then you would say, except when I'm not. And I know it sounds like you're a schizophrenic or super contradictory. And the truth is you are intentionally being contradictory. You are actually using that phrase of language to contradict the belief structure that, quote unquote, I'm always late. Or I'm so disorganized, except when I'm not. Because what I will assert to you, and I encourage you to really sit with, question, do what you will with, no one is anything always. I'm going to say that again. No one is one thing all the time. And, for people who are like, I completely lack willpower, I guarantee in one area of your life, you are 100% on board, right? When you think you're disorganized, in another area, you're super organized. Maybe on your desk, you're a chaos. Yeah, you're like, I don't know how people have those clean desks. But maybe with your meal prep, you're super organized. Maybe with your morning routine. It's like in some area, you probably are super organized. So just using these loosening phrases that stop the absolute language. And as a side note, look for absolute language. So where are you saying always, must, what's another absolute? So, so they always this, or they never that. Absolute language. Absolute language is literally a red flag saying, I got a hardcore belief here, and you want to go in there and destabilize it with some of these loosening phrases, or at the very least, question yourself. Is that true? So using the word yet, using the word except when I am. So, I'm so unlucky. People say these things. It's like you build, let this land. You build your world with your words. So throughout the day, if something shit happens and you're like, shit always happens to me. Well, great. Guess what you just affirmed as an identity, and therefore will get more of, because remember, magnetic universe, you get what you say you are. So if you are a magnet for shit happening, great work. You're going to get more of it. So instead of that, it's like, shit always happens to me, except when it doesn't. It's that simple. It sounds funny. And also in some ways, it kind of is funny. And the universe has a great sense of humor, and humor is a really, it's just an elixir for joy, right? So it just takes you out of that it's almost like a pattern interrupt. Okay, so we got accept when I am. And then the most relevant thing is when you are defining yourself with identity, use the word and. Okay, so there are times, there are other examples where I ask people not to use the word and, particularly when we have rules for happiness and rules for success. We don't want to use the word and. But when it comes to identity, and is a superpower. So this is where it's like, maybe you'd be like, I'm a super passionate career woman, and I love spending time with my family, and I just adore being between the sheets with my lover, and I love nature, and I love food, and sleeping in is such joy for me, and I love working out. So notice how it's an and it just expands and expands and expands the identity of this person I just started speaking about, as opposed to someone who's like, I'm super hardcore passionate about my career, full stop, end of story, that's it. Because what we speak about, we bring about, and what we focus on expands. So if my identity is super expansive, then I'm available for all of it, right? I'm available for all parts of me to feel fully expressed. If I'm only ever speaking about a part, a piece of me, and affirming just a piece of me, well, guess what? That's the only piece that it's allowed to show up, because it's the only piece I speak of. So, and when it comes to identity. And then what we want to do gradually is just update our identity. So right now, look around at your life and wonder or question, am I currently running an outdated identity in a space? Let me share a quick story here on this one. So I remember years ago, I wanted to train. I set myself a challenge of training for an outdoor swimming, what's the word? It's like a team swim. It was an outdoor, as in the open ocean. And I'm a bit scared of sharks. I live in Australia. I have good reason to be scared of sharks. And I was like, this would be a good challenge, because I'm not a swimmer. Notice the language now. I'm not a swimmer. I identified as not being a swimmer. And I was like, that would challenge me to do this swim in this team in Western Australia. And so I started training in the swimming pool. And the point is, I kept telling everyone, I'm such a brick. I just sink down, like I get in the pool and it's like I kick, and I sink, and swimming's really hard for me. Now, if you know me beyond, this live, you would know that, I've got 20 plus years in health and fitness, and I exercise regularly. So a lot of people would be like, Marina, of course you can swim. But of all the different kinds of fitness that I do, swimming just wasn't the kind that gelled the most, right? So I had these stories about swimming, and I took those stories with me when I started to train. And I remember going into the swimming pool and really looking at all the lanes and being super hopeful that there would be a lane with nobody in it. I'd be like, please let there be no one in the lane, so that I'm not so slow and get in their way, and because that would just be mortifying. And of course, I would go and I'd look for the lane that had the least person or had the slowest person, and I'd go in that lane. Now, I committed to my goal, and I'd signed up and I had a team. So I started training. And much like anything, what we persist with, what we're consistent with, we will get progress in, right? We get growth in. So I started to get better at swimming, go figure. And then one day I noticed, and it's like, I have a good self-awareness, let's say that. As a teacher of growth, you would hope so. So I remember going into the swimming pool again and assessing the lines. This is like, I don't even know how many months later. And I'm assessing, what are those things called? Lanes, gosh, words, yes. The lanes in the pool. And I'm suddenly scanning the lanes to make sure no one's in the lane, but for a different reason, so that they don't get in my way. And it's like that day that I had that thought, I was like, oh my gosh, did I just say that? And then I'm like, I must now be a swimmer. And so I updated my identity. And the moment I updated my identity, I'm now a swimmer. I'm not necessarily the greatest swimmer on the planet, but I'm a swimmer because I come regularly and I train at swimming. Yes. So, and in doing that, it's like it made it so much easier. Going to the pool in general made it easier. So Just think about where in your life you're not yet identifying as something that you're growing into because you think you're not it until you're masterful. Now, I went and swam that ocean swim in a team, and I was not the best even in my team, and certainly not the best in the race, but I completed it. And identifying as a swimmer was super helpful. So you could look at this, where are you identifying as an exercise hater, but you exercise regularly? That's not supportive. If you exercise regularly, you're a committed exerciser. So update your identity, yeah? Or try those 3 language tips I gave you before. Yet, except when I am, and using the word and. Okay, the last point I want to make about this is, where in your life are you allowing other people to keep you committed to an old identity? Okay, so this might be where you are consciously or even unconsciously being pulled towards your destiny, your dreams, and your desires. And when you make movements in that direction, people around you kind of pull you up, pull you back, and essentially want to keep you where you are. They might make fun of you. They might cast judgment. You might just feel it energetically. And this is a loving reminder that they have their life. And it's their life that they get to do what they want with. It's their identity that they get to do what they want with. We give away our power when we give people the power to choose, control, or take our identity and power, right? And that's just a no-go. They got their life, you got yours, you do you, they'll do them. So this is also true. And again, a loving invitation to explore where people around you are growing, shifting, and changing, and you are trying to keep them the same, quote unquote, in identity, remembering that identity is the origin, or the etymology of identity is sameness. So explore that, because we definitely have people around us who don't want us to change. And, people often say, oh, you've changed. And it's like, yeah, we should be like, yeah, I have. Thanks for noticing. I mean, on a foundational level, if you are a organic living organism on this or in this universe, your very purpose is growth and expansion. Every single thing that is living is either expanding or contracting towards death, right? That's the nature of it. I don't know about you, but I know which I would rather be doing for the majority of my life, at least until maybe just that last hurrah. So be committed. I mean, wouldn't it be such a great thing to be a different you than you were before? Knowing that all parts of you are welcome, and that the versions of you that led to now are not any less. They're not any less. And there are definitely seasons. And so the last piece, I know I said I was just going to finish off there, but the one thing I do want to say, one thing that that affects our identity, which then affects our capacity to claim and have what we want in life, are these titles and these roles, these hats, if you will, that we wear. So, they might be mother, they might be business owner, they might be employer, they might be musician, any of these labels. And I like to say that labels limit us, but only if you decide that concept has a limited construct. So something that obviously I teach in my wholeness work and my sovereignty work as a coach with my clients is really allowing them to liberate themselves, to free themselves of the limit of their labels, and to just rip up the rules and rewrite them as an adult. Okay. And what that means is, do I get to be a mother? Absolutely. Do I have to be a mother who is a martyr and doesn't have her own life and doesn't take care of herself? Well, I could if I wanted to follow the rules of perhaps 2 generations ago. I do not. Do I want to be, and I get to choose the mother I want to be. Do I want to be a mother that lives her best life, and in doing that says to her children as a permission slip, you get to do the same? The answer to that would be yes. And that's what I choose. So what that means is I get to be a mother, and I get to be a CEO and an entrepreneur, and I get to be a student as well as a teacher every freaking day. And I get to be a lover, and you get my point. It's like I get to be all of these things, not one of them. And one of them shouldn't inhibit another one, right? So as an example, and I know I'm using a lot of women examples. Sorry, it's just I work a lot in that space. But if someone, for instance, steps into the role of mother, what they often find is that their sensuality and their sexuality diminishes, because they have some unconscious belief that being a mother is nurturing, and the quote unquote mistress archetype doesn't get to coexist. But all of our identities get to coexist. And when you take and collect all of your identities of sameness, but if you have many of them, you suddenly have wholeness. So the goal, if I can just finish with this, the goal is to hold your identity loosely. very loosely. And the more that you hold it loosely and the more that you question it, play with it, well, that's when you get really powerful. And you get this power because suddenly you're super agile with life. You're super agile with the changes of life because you are able to shift and change. Not as in not be yourself, but be all aspects of yourself. Be in your allness to greet life in its wholeness too. So if we are more agile with our identity, then we have more options available to us. It's that simple. Can I be scared and brave? Yes. Notice how that's different to I'm always scared or I'm only ever scared. I can be scared and brave. I can be patient and impatient. I can be prepared and completely unprepared. And I guarantee you I'm often those things, yeah? We are a walking contradiction, and I don't know about you, but I really like people who own their wholeness and express themselves freely in all ways. And this conversation today is really an invitation for you to explore, who do I think I am? And where did I get that idea from that I had to be that? And is that true? And would I choose it now? And if I got to choose again, what might I choose? And then use those language tools I've shared with you. Consider, joining the Switching Sabotage to Success Masterclass, because we'll unpack more things there. In fact, there's a really powerful, beautiful process that I'm going to guide everyone through, which even just being on the call is a game changer by going through that with me. And then, I'm 100% here to support you. So the Awaken Your Wholeness program starts later this month. So consider these things. But for today, I really hope that you took something of value. Let me know if you did. And thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. All right. Have a beautiful day, a beautiful night, wherever you are in the world. Bye.